All right, it's 2 minutes after the hour here in California. Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Thomas. I head up marketing and strategic alliances for Ridecell. I appreciate your joining this morning or this evening if you're in a different time zone. So I'd love to spend some time chatting about the key to building a profitable and sustainable mobility service. I think one of the things that we have to look back and reflect on is that there is massive value creation that's coming ahead. I think, this is the thing that makes it all worthwhile for us. So if you take a look at some of the projections of the value of the automotive OEMs in the business of selling vehicles to private individuals, that's a market that is reflected in the gray bars. And if you take a look at the expected market cap of all the mobility service providers that'll be coming in the future, those are the green bars. And it's really the prize that we're all trying to figure out. How do we enter the market? How do we position ourselves so that we're able to capture a big portion of this sort of future growth of a revolution in how the industry is growing? So here's the irony, though, is that, there's this promise of a $9 trillion market, lots of money to be made, but nobody's making any money today. So you can't really afford to sit back and wait until AVs come. But if you start now and you can't make a profit, will you even be in business to get to that future pot of gold? So the question we're going to talk about is, how do you get to the pot of gold and become profitable along the way? So we're here to talk about car sharing, and I think everybody tends to think of the end game is autonomous ride hailing or robo-cabs, and those absolutely are in the long run. That's what this will morph to. Car sharing will probably become a relatively small market in the future. But the reason to become a car sharing service provider today isn't so that you can remain a car sharing service provider in the future. It's so that you can position yourself to get the right set of skills and expertise through owning a fleet of vehicles, which is one of the most distinguishing characteristics of what the future shared mobility services are like. A lot of the companies that we talk to are asking, should we start getting some experience in ride sharing? Or should we how can we get into this future market? And we think that becoming and going into the ride-sharing market today is a little bit of the wrong approach, because not only are you having to learn a skill set, which is about recruiting drivers, you essentially have to be willing to lose money until autonomous ride-hailing comes. If you look at some of the S1 filings for Uber and maybe Lyft, it says that that's the step change of economics that really gets us to being able to build a profitable shared mobility service. On the other hand, if you were to go into car sharing today, you not only learn how to manage a fleet of vehicles, but you are set up to be able to make money now. And it's much nicer to be in a market where you're not competing against companies that are willing to lose $1 billion a quarter to try and continue to buy market share. This is something where you get expertise and you can run a profitable business. Profitability and sustainability require a different approach to building a shared mobility business. I think many people have this idea that all you need is hardware that plugs into the vehicle so that you can lock and unlock the cars, and an app, and you have the ability to run a car sharing service. And in fact, that is true. You have the ability to run a car sharing service, but you don't have the ability to run one that's sustainable and profitable. So really, when you think about what's required to do this, there are three key requirements. And the first is that it's really important to create a great experience at every touch point, not just the app. It's about having a high quality customer experience. So when we think about that, it doesn't mean that your app looks beautiful. It means that it's ensuring your customers always get a car that's clean and ready to go. It's providing customers with a service they want that's personalized and priced for them. And it's having a car nearby wherever and whenever a customer wants one. And it's making the entire journey from onboarding to parking seamless and delightful. So it's, I think it stands to reason that people will use a service that they love. And there's a lot of dimensions that go in behind the scenes to creating a service that people really love and become dependent on. So the second thing that you have to do is maximize the number of hours and ways that the vehicle are used. The vehicles don't make any money when they're parked. And so the second key requirement is you have to focus on getting high fleet utilization. And so it's running multiple services on a single fleet with a single app. We'll talk more about that in a bit. It's making sure that your supply can meet the demand anytime, anywhere. And it's being able to reach and appeal to a broad range of customers. And finally, it's being able to dynamically adjust pricing based on customer use, location, and time of day. Price elasticity is a real thing. Being able to create and target pricing for specific times and users is a very key part to getting utilization up from just the natural demand for a free-floating style car sharing service. And then third, it's really important from the start that you design and run the business for peak performance. And in order to create a sustainable and profitable shared mobility service, you need high efficiency operations. It's having the right city and business partners needed to launch quickly and run smoothly. It's automating business operations like onboarding, risk management, and payment processing. And it's using big data to optimize fleet positioning and automate rebalancing and incentive pricing. And then finally, it's about having a system that can actively track and automate fleet tasks and labor management. So it's all three of these that are the drivers for profit. And, when you optimize a single one of those, you don't get this effect where when you have all three of them really working hard, they come together and they create something called high yield shared mobility. And it's truly the what's required to take a car sharing business from something that barely ekes out a living to one where you can really build a deep, profitable ROI. So really the goal is create a service that allows you to generate profit, that allows you to scale, and really allows you to create consumer demand. So we're going to go in now and take a look at the technology services and ecosystem that's required to do this. So I think the last section was really about just understanding what are the components that most of these profitable car sharing businesses need to do sort of as the vision and the end state. Now we can talk a bit more about how we get there. So let's look at this high quality customer experience. So first, you need better customer insights for a high yield service. Machine learning is a phenomenal way to really crawl through the data of your customers and develop segmentation based on usage patterns. It's really important to understand whether your customer is a commuter, whether they're an errand runner, whether they're somebody that's getting in the car and using it to drive for Uber or Lyft as a professional user. But it's understanding that the users and the usage is the foundation to creating a service that meets your customer needs. You can use it to define service areas. You absolutely will use machine learning for fleet balancing, for instance. So very, very important. Make sure that you've got some great ML in place to help do the segmentation of your users. A lot of benefits accrue from having this understanding. For instance, being able to have variable pricing, price differentiation, price elasticity, these are real phenomena. So understanding that the value of your fleet has different values depending upon who the user is and what time of day it is. So being able to create multiple pricing models, standard, off-peak, morning rush hours, define them with a start date, even an automated end date if you're just experimenting, running a promotion. All of those facilities are really important because it's not just about 41 cents a mile. It's about being able to offer the price that's right for the right time of day and the right location. Another thing that's really critical is being able to establish user groups, which means that you can have multiple rates for the same vehicle, allowing for things like corporate and subsidized plans. So being able to take your customers, those that download the app and discover it themselves, may end up paying the standard rates that everybody else pays. If you are a corporate member, and let's say it's an electric fleet, corporations have green incentives, so the companies will frequently be able to offer a code that if the user logs in with a corporate email address, they will get the corporate subsidized rate, and being able to then charge the customer one rate and then settle up with the corporation who can top up that customer is key. We have a customer that's running on the Ridecell platform that's AAA, and they offer their AAA members a discount if they're using the car sharing service. So there's definitely, it's a good thing to be able to offer the fleet for multiple different prices for one fleet. And I think you're going to start to see there's a theme here, which is having one fleet with multiple prices, with multiple different user groups, and multiple business models is one of the essential insights that's required to really make this a profitable business. Then we talked about having the vehicles that are clean and charged and fueled. And I think that being able to take actions based upon both vehicle and user feedback and automatically resolve any issues that are coming. So, if a user reports that the vehicle is dirty, and that's their feedback, then the next we can take it out of commission automatically based upon that user feedback and dispatch somebody there to clean the car and make sure that it's in great shape for the next. Also, the vehicle, we can get many different signals off of that car, so we understand the battery state, if the battery state or the gas levels get too low, we can also take those vehicles out of service. If we get a warning that, windshield washer fluid or things like that need to be addressed, or there's a check engine light on, we're able to interpret that information and resolve appropriately whether that vehicle gets somebody sent to it, like it's low tire pressure. It's easy to send somebody there and fill up the tire. But if it's something more serious, then the car can either be towed or we can dispatch somebody automatically to drive it in. And, not to discount the app. I mean, I think app in many instances people feel is table stakes. But what you need is an app strategy that grows as you grow. So we offer a white label app experience that has all of our best practices baked into it. And our customers generally start by putting their brand and colors into an app experience that allows for free-floating or station-based car sharing into a single app. We're having now, typically after a year or so, the companies understand what their unique value proposition is, and they want to own the app experience to create one that's really optimized towards their brand, that highlights their unique differentiation. So, for instance, on the right-hand side are some screenshots from the Reach Now service in North America, which is powered by BMW's a fleet of BMWs, and it was part of the BMW parent company. It was now spun off into a merger with the whole Now family of brands. And so they created I think the world's first app that allows you to have both a button that says, I'd like to reserve a car, and right alongside it, I'd like to get picked up by a driver. So it's the first combined car sharing and ride hailing experience, and it's one that they did on their own, using APIs that connect into the back end. So having the freedom to create an app that, as you learn more and enter the market, it's really, really important. If you're an auto dealer group, for instance, you could have the app that you create tied into your service desk, so that when somebody creates an appointment for servicing, they're able to reserve a car that they can use as their loaner vehicle while their service is being performed. So lots of ways to creatively take the back end of what you get in a car sharing and ride hailing platform and write a custom application for it. All right, so then let's look at what do we need to do for high fleet utilization. Well, one of the insights is that different mobility services have peak usage at different times of the day. So if you are doing ride hailing, for instance, there's a lot of demand for that at the end of the day. Parking gets harder. People go to restaurants. They may have something to drink. So there's, by and large, the big demand for that is in the evening. But then if you have station-based car sharing, and then you have one-way car sharing, or what we call free-floating car sharing, those have different peak curves, many of which involve people using them to run errands in the middle of the day. And so what we're finding is that you need opportunities to put a vehicle to work around the clock, so that, at the middle of the night, that vehicle can be used for its scheduled downtime for maintenance, or more likely for charging. The fleets of the future are all going to be EVs, and it's going to be important that these, even though they'll have, today 250-mile range, getting them to a depot where they can be charged will be an important piece of keeping that vehicle on the road. Then somebody can use it for an early bird commute or a regular commute to work. And then when the car sits in the street, people in their offices need to run to the dentist or have an appointment, and they took public transit to get in, that car is available for them to use either in a one-way style or they can bring it back to the parking lot. Lunch is another errand that people can run, hop in the car. Several people from work go out to lunch. Then in the afternoon, somebody that works for a grocery delivery company is able to check that car out and use it to deliver groceries to people in the suburbs. Then the commute hour is going to be a big one for these free-floating style car sharing groups, so having the cars available for that. And then renting the vehicles to ride-sharing drivers so that they're able to take a car and use it just for the premium hours of ride-sharing where there's great surge pricing. Right now, the ride-sharing companies, the big ones, at least here, I know in the United States, and I've heard this in India as well, that there's just a vast shortage of drivers who have their own vehicles. What's happening is that people are driving in from 2-3 hours away in cities that are much smaller without profitable surge pricing, and they'll drive in and to the city like San Francisco, drive for 12 hours. Sometimes they sleep in their car and stay here for a few days. And that's a segment of people that can come in and serve the city needs. But what it still doesn't do is help address the peak demand. So if people are able to check out a vehicle that's in a car sharing fleet and drive for 2 hours, after work, and then do their commute home after that, lets people earn some extra money, and it also really helps fill in the gaps around meeting the needs of getting drivers with access to vehicles that only need them for a few hours. I mean, think of being able to have a student that wants to go on a date on Saturday night. That student would love to be able to drive for a few hours, make some extra money, doesn't want the commitment of renting a car for a whole week just for that opportunity. So the goal is having the ability to launch multiple business models on one fleet of vehicles that really helps increase the vehicle utilization. Being able to run a station-based service that puts the cars at a station, and the benefit of that is that you can schedule and offer scheduled rentals that way. Free-floating car sharing is much more difficult to do, reserve ahead because you don't know where the car is going to be. We offer a reserve ahead free-floating car sharing option that allows for a valet delivery of the vehicle, so that's another way around it. But free-floating car sharing and the ability to have a platform that lets you run your own ride-sharing service is great, because once you have that fleet of vehicles, it's relatively straightforward to put drivers in those cars and use them for your own service, just like Reach Now has done. So then, again, another theme, AI and machine learning are really important. So predicting usage patterns is one of the keys to figuring out how to get that utilization up. If the car is in the place where the demand is, that's a great thing because it provides a huge convenience. Being able to do spatial analysis to define where the hot and cold zones are, and then time-based cluster analysis to define really time slices so that you can predict at any given time of day or night where the demand will be. And then using heuristics to recommend the repositioning of the vehicle and the methods is also a really key piece to keeping the fleet in the right place. And the key learning here is that if the fleet is in the right place, you're more likely to show increase in demand, because it's when somebody presses the button to see where the nearest car is, the closer it is, the more likely of the ability to convert. So it's, we track all of the app opens as a mechanism to detect where the possible demand could be. So we use app opens as an important element of data point, both for real time to understand where the demand is in any given moment, but also as a model to help predict it. App opens that don't turn into rentals, we view as a lost opportunity. And then we also have analysis that lets us understand, where was the nearest car, and try to understand what's behind the motivation of the person who pulled it up, and may or may not have rented a vehicle. So again, deep insights into how the customers are using the service. And then it's really important that you have a service engine that supports marketing promotions. So it's not just about, refer a friend to grow the user base, which is important, but it's also about finding ways to increase engagement with the customers you already have. If you see that a customer has been a frequent user and they've fallen off, we're able to identify that user and then offer them a promotion where they can get a discount on their next ride, so get them using it again. If you see a customer that has sporadic usage, we're able to have built into the platform a mechanism that says, drive 3 times and your 4th ride is free. So that it's important to be able to use that knowledge of the customer and knowledge of their use cases to put together a really important promotion that will trigger them to kind of rejoin the system. All right, so then let's take a look at the second category, the third category, high efficiency operations. It's a lot of these things are easy to do at small scale, but they're very difficult to do at scale. Being able to have a system that automates how these things are run is very important. Fleet operations are an expensive piece of running a shared mobility service. Rebalancing can take up to 40% of your fleet operations budget. Refueling could be another 20%. And so what we found is that crowdsourcing can really help address the 60% of these fleet operations costs. And it was a really big breakthrough for us to build in the insights to incentivize users to do fleet operations actions rather than having our customers pay to do those vehicle actions. You can see here there's some different colored pins. These are gold pins or vehicles that are on sale, and we can use this differentiated pricing to encourage users to pick up these vehicles over the other vehicles. And it can be that the vehicle's in a cold zone, and it turns out that everybody loves a sale, and a lot of the people that are using this car sharing services are price sensitive, so many people will gladly walk 10 blocks to get the car that's 20% off rather than 2 blocks to get the car that's closest, and which means that you're doing them a service because you're offering them a vehicle at below the normal rate, but you're also doing yourself a service. You're making $9 in revenue versus paying $26 to pay somebody to manually move the vehicle. When we turned this feature on with one of our customers, it was absolutely dramatic, the amount of money that they saved. And in fact, they saved more in fleet operations by getting customers to do it than they were paying us in fees to run the platform for their service. So huge amount of upside if you get this right. One of the keys that's necessary in understanding and doing dynamic pricing is that each of the vehicles has a predictive model so that we know precisely, we have a guess precisely at when this vehicle is going to be rented next. And it's with that model that we can then build a model that says, look, if we think it's within 12 hours, we can offer something that's the discount. If we think it's even further afield, we can then just automatically dispatch somebody immediately to move that vehicle or batch it in the queue of vehicles that they have to both move and or clean. So this predictive model becomes very important because that means the system is managing itself. And when you start to realize that there's zones that aren't going to be used for some time, we're able to then set recommendations about what the zones should be, so you can rezone and redistrict your service without, with relative ease using the operations center. So another source of leakage is fraud. It's incredible how much fraud can go on in the industry. We've seen some examples recently where people were stealing Mercedes vehicles because the fraud element of the platform wasn't highly tuned. We have a number of different fraud prevention elements that have saved our customers hundreds of thousands of dollars because we've been able to identify fraudulent users before they were able to get access to the vehicles. Things like geofencing account registrations. We've got rule-based fraud detection and dashboard with a reason and override capabilities so that you're able to support cases on a case-by-case basis if somebody's been deactivated or has suspicious activities. But I can't emphasize enough how important it is to make sure that there's a very highly developed anti-fraud capability because the criminals will find a way around less sophisticated solutions. Being able to have dynamic service areas is another way you can save money. One of the challenges of running a car sharing service is that people park in parking spots that will have restrictions like tow-away zones or street cleaning, and generally, if they weren't in possession of the vehicle, it's hard to collect from them. So what we have the ability to do is within a service region, create automated zone restrictions so that streets with street cleaning within the next 24 hours or within the next 12 hours or whatever the preferred parameter is, are blocked off as streets where you can park the car so that the person is unable to end the ride there. And it's great. It's visual on a map. They can see the parts where they can't park. They can easily see the neighboring streets where they can park. So being able to have this service that dynamically controls the region, if there's a special event, here in San Francisco, there's a ballpark downtown, and nights where people are playing baseball, all the parking is no longer available to people in car share services. So having that ability to dynamically turn off and on the parking around these ballparks and things, really important to keeping your overall costs down. In the end, it takes a village. Even when you choose a technology layer, you have to then make decisions on how do I connect the vehicles to the cloud? How do I let people get automated entry to those with digital keys that are personalized and control the immobilizer? Who should I buy my vehicles from? Where should I get insurance that insures car sharing? Who should I work with to do the fleet operations so that I can make sure that my cars are cleaned and in the right place? That requires companies that have local presence and hire people that do these sorts of things. And then which CRM system should I use so that I can get on-device notifications, that I can do personalized mailings, that I can understand and build my own customer database so that I can take the real-time alerts that are coming from Ridecell's data pipeline and correlate those with the customers that are in my CRM system so that I can trigger real-time marketing events. And then finally, who should I use and who can I use for consulting and systems integration when it comes to tying these systems together? Ridecell has partners that have been really focused on each of these elements, and it's a huge differentiator because we've launched more than 20 different services that aren't just car sharing. They're car sharing, they're ride hailing, they're ride pooling, they're shuttle services. We've got people who work here with experience at 10 different services that have been out in the running, some very successful, some that have shut down, and I think you learn more from your failures than your successes in some instances. So it's been, we come with a pre-integrated ecosystem of partners that can really help our customers get into the business. Just briefly about us, we are Ridecell. We've been founded in 2009. The name Ridecell means get a ride with your cell phone. We're 160 employees globally with headquarters in San Francisco, offices in Europe, and a fast-growing office in India. As part of this takes a village, many of the companies that we're working with are also investors now in us. The automotive OEM, BMW, their iVentures. Tier 1s are an important partner because they're the ones that make the components that will be bought by the OEMs. And we're working hard with a community of Tier 1s to create a car share ready vehicle that not only has access built into it, but things like, smoke detectors or cameras that can check the state of the vehicle. So we don't have to wait for a person to say, hey, this car has got garbage in it. We can prevent the garbage by having the cameras look around the cabin when the person gets out and not let them end the ride until they take their garbage out with them. Auto dealerships like the Penske Group, important partners with us. Insurance, Munich Re is the reinsurance company, very, very big in moving into shared mobility. Think about trying to finance these fleets of vehicles. That's when auto financing companies like Ally and BNP Paribas are important. Cox Automotive is a group that's been focused on the dealer community and providing services to them. They launched a division called Pivot that now aims to be the premier fleet operations for shared mobility. And even, Deutsche Bahn as a transportation company has invested in us. So lots of ecosystem partners are looking to understand that this is a layered architecture and that each of these elements has a huge opportunity to participate. Our customers, ReachNow, Gig, Ziddy, and Karma are some of the flagship customers we're working with. This is Renault, BMW, the Auto Club. Lots of these companies like the Auto Club understand they have to reinvent themselves for a world when private vehicle ownership starts to really decline. With that, I'd like to open it up for questions, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mark. So we are open to questions right now. Please feel to type in your questions in the question tab below, and we'd be happy to address those questions. We'll take a minute.
Do you have a poll question that you wanted to push?
Yeah, we could do the poll question right now. So why don't I push it? So let's see. All right, so what you should be seeing on your screen right now is our first poll question, which says, what do you see as the biggest hurdle preventing business success of current shared mobility operations? So we'd love for you to be able to participate in the poll. Will give us a good sense of how the webinar went and what were some of the key observations or insights that you got from the webinar. So I'm going to give it a minute or two before I close the poll. All right, it's going to go ahead and close the poll right now. All right, so here are the results. So Mark, you should be happy with this. So 65% of the audience today said profitability is the biggest hurdle preventing business success of current shared mobility operations. Great. All right, let me just take a look at if we've had any questions come in. All right, so I see the first question which has come in, Mark. It says, what's more important? Is regulation or incentive more important in driving the acceptance of shared mobility in cities?
Got it. Regulation, I think, is the single biggest impediment to successfully launching a shared mobility service. If it's done properly, it can be magic. If we look at Madrid did two things really well. The first was they offered free-floating car-sharing permits to any company that wants to enter Madrid, provided that the fleet is pure EV. And then second, they made parts of the city, the central downtown, Old Town district, EV only. And so the fastest way across town suddenly changed from taking your own car to getting one of these EVs. That has been massively important to generating demand for the service. We power Renault and Ferrovial service called Zity in Madrid, and these cars are getting used as much as 10 times a day, which is really unheard of in a shared mobility service. On the other hand, if you have a city that doesn't allow for free-floating car-sharing service, it doesn't mean that you can't enter that market. It just means that parking becomes a huge, huge piece of the solution. So we have, ironically, here in San Francisco, free-floating car-sharing isn't allowed. So our customer that was across the bridge in Berkeley and Oakland had huge demand from their customers to drive into San Francisco for commuting and then drive out. So what we've done is build in the capability to have private parking lots and deals with the parking lot owners so that these parking lots show up as essentially free-floating zones. So when you drive into San Francisco, you can go to one of the parking lots, leave the cars there. You don't have to pay for parking because the car is released from you and it's now available for the next driver. So having a interlock system of parking lots, especially where there maybe isn't much street parking, becomes a really critical piece to being able to offer a car sharing service by not only getting around if the cities don't allow you to park on the street for free, but in areas where there isn't much parking, you want to have extra parking lots available just for your customers.
All right. I'm seeing a couple of other questions. So another one, this one's interesting. How does your platform account for the unique challenges of managing electric vehicles?
So electric vehicles, in many ways, offer huge cost savings over the traditional ICE engines, but they bring their own unique challenges as well. Customers will fill the gas tank of a vehicle if it's low, and you give them an incentive. Customers are much less likely to put the e-vehicle into a charging station, since most people have never charged an e-vehicle. So having this automated system that detects usage patterns and range and can then decide when that vehicle needs to be taken out of service so that either A, somebody can drive it to the charging depot, or if we see that a customer is near a charging station, we flash a gold circle on the map and we incentivize them to leave the car near one of the charging stations, not at the charging station, just near it. And that is a huge cost savings because the person who's working the charging station is able to hop on a kick scooter, just ride over to the vehicle, and then take it to the station and plug it in. So being able to know when to plug these vehicles in is important. Now with 250 mile range vehicles, we have one of our customers has a fleet of Chevy Bolts that are live in California. Madrid has a large fleet of Renault Zoes. These are longer range vehicles, which I think are essentially required to run a car sharing service. Anything less than 180 miles starts to increase the cost because the vehicles end up out of charge frequently. But if you've got a 250 mile range, you can probably go with charging them every third day, which is great because these vehicles need to be cleaned every third day frequently. So bring them into a charging depot, which you set up in a location where the power grid has some surplus capacity, so you're not paying too much for that electricity. You've got people there that can top off the windshield washer fluid, that can wipe the car down, vacuum the inside, do an inspection to make sure that they're ready to go and in good shape. All very important components. But certainly we think that people who are getting into the business should really think hard and figure out how they can incorporate EVs into their fleet.
Okay. Can a car sharing service be profitable while using only one business model, for example, station-based model?
Yeah, I think Zipcar has publicly said that they are a profitable subdivision of the Avis Budget Group. Zipcar is famous for being one of the pioneers in this space. They originated the station-based car sharing model, which means that the vehicle that gets checked out has to be brought back to that same spot. We found that historically those vehicles will get roughly 12% utilization just for that one business model, which is just about break even or slight profitability. Which is why, while it might be easy to just put a bunch of cars in a station, it's not the way to maximize the revenue. So being able to have station-based with scheduled rentals and reservations, having free floating, use the vehicles for ride-sharing drivers, run your own ride-sharing service. These are all the components that are necessary to keep those vehicles running around the clock.
All right. I'm seeing a lot of questions come in. Maybe we can take just maybe a couple more. When should a car sharing operations utilizing other platforms such as Getaround, Turo, etc. start looking into building out its own versus using Ridecell and its ecosystem?
Yeah, I was a presenter and went to the Turo Super Users Conference where people had anywhere between 10 vehicles and 200. We think that the sweet spot for running a free-floating car-sharing service in a smaller community is probably around 100 vehicles. That's if the community allows free-floating car sharing. If you're trying to put the vehicles in parking garages, you're not going to get the benefit of people walking by and seeing them nearly as much. So in that instance, you might need to start with a fleet of 150 or up even 200, depending upon the geofence. But it's yes, there's many ways to really control your own destiny once you get to that point. Also, it means you're not giving up half of your revenues to the parent company that's operating this peer-to-peer fleet.
So maybe we can take one more mark before we wrap up. It says, Can the Ridecell software accommodate a peer-to-peer sharing service today as well as a fleet?
Yeah, the answer is no. We believe that the future is fleet. That people who work with us are building up a business that will be something that's massive market in the future. In the future, people aren't going to have autonomous vehicles that they bought and then decide that they're going to donate or rent out because they're going to be considerably more expensive than the typical used car that's on Turo and Getaround today. So our focus is helping companies prepare for the future, and the best way to prepare for the future is to adopt a model that will scale to the future. So I know we're out of time for questions. Just to let you know, I'm happy to take your questions via my personal email, which is mark@ridecell.com. So if you didn't get your question answered, feel free to shoot me a question and I'll get back to you. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark. And I just wanted to close the webinar by saying that we will be sharing the webinar via an email after we close out today, because I saw a couple of questions come in saying, will we be able to get a replay? Will a replay be available? So yes, certainly we'll be sharing that right after the webinar. Thank you so much, and thank you, Mark. Thank you.
You got it. Bye, everyone.